Let's see if the audio works any better on here. I was having a lot of issues with OBS, and I was just using a ton of processor power, horsepower. I just don't have it on this machine. Um, so a lot of what I was saying before in the previous live streams, gone, completely gone. I don't even know what I said. But that being said, um, we can talk about what I'm building. So when a ham radio operator, which I'm a licensed ham radio operator, um, is talking on the radio, we have meetings called nets. Now, they're scheduled most of the time, and they're all different kinds of nets. The one I participate mostly is a traffic net, where we just basically pass traffic back and forth. Now, this is kind of like a stand-up or just a meeting in general, except you can't see who's there, and it's radio, right? Like you don't have no idea who's there, who could be there, who's listening, and it would be total chaos if there wasn't someone in charge. That person is called net control. Now, the general flow of net, at least the ones I participated in, uh, the net control operator at his station, which is each where the radios are called stations, um, will call the meeting to order. They have some sort of preamble that they say, like CQ, CQ, CQ. This is call sign with for the Southeast Florida Traffic Net, calling all amateur radio operators, blah, blah, blah. And they have a certain procedure. And then what they'll do is they'll call for check-ins and they'll say, oh, is there anyone with emergency traffic? Go ahead and check in now. And then people will say, this is call sign. My name is Frank in Oklahoma or wherever it is that you happen to be. And they have each net has also format, so on, of the way they like to have their check-ins, which is described by net control. And then the net control operator writes it down in a notebook or on a piece of paper or in a text pad or text note edit or whatever notepad it is that you're using. They write it down. They write down the call sign, name, all that information. Then they let that people basically announce themselves for a little bit, and they'll say, okay, let's hold it right there. Recognizing station one, recognizing station two, and they acknowledge each station, and maybe they make a mistake, they correct it, that sort of thing. If someone later on wants to add a new comment, they might ask for a recheck or a question or something like that. Those are formal traffic nets. There are informal ones, which are not nearly that structured, but still usually they check in. And there's some things like the emergency management service will specifically call each station to have them check in, and they'll say, calling Broward County, calling Monroe County, calling Dade County, whatever it is. There's a certain format associated with that. So the goal of the application is to take this logbook and replace it with software. Make it easier for operators to track and manage everything they're going to do, specifically myself. I want to be able to track it better. Hopefully, others will want to track it too, as well. So, to that end, what I've been focusing on as a Go engineer, a Go developer, I want to make a Go application that does this, and using a tool called Temple for the actual generation of the templates, so the HTML, all that sort of stuff. And since I'm not really a JavaScript developer day to day, and I prefer to just write Go, I'm also all the interactivity is occurring using HTMX, which lets me load fragments of HTML, shove them on a page in response to regular HTTP requests, which is a fantastic workflow, very lightweight, and I can focus on just the writing a little bit of HTML and all the functionality in Go. Not using any frameworks or tools within Go for that. Everything is mostly homegrown. I have a whole layer for models of how describing how data is. I have a data access layer or a DAO for actually connecting to the database and performing queries that is generated code generated with SQL C, have a logging library, of course, have events, have a whole idea for an event stream that can be applied. There's also handlers, which take HTTP requests and turn them into deal with user input and subsequent generating of user output. There are views, which only are concerned with how things look. A little bit of behavior built in because of HTMX. And then there are services. And services could be something like the lookup service that queries the FCC or other licensing authorities in order to validate a license that you have the right information, or maybe you only heard the license, the call sign, and you need their name or location or whatever other information can be backfilled from their license. Or the service that loads an account or creates a session or performs the nitty-gritty of authenticating users. All that sort of stuff are services. So with that, I have a basic UI using Barebones. I think it's called Barebones CSS. It's enough to look. I'm not trying to make it look gorgeous. I'm trying to make it clean and functional and relatively simple. So to that end, this is the basic UI. I still have a whole thing with actual completed UI, whether it be all the details about the net is on the right. I have the ability to generate a timeline of events that have occurred. And the basic flow is you would say something like for BUG, boom. And now that we're going, and you can see stuff happening on the background here of it actually starting a lookup with the ham database service and going ahead and seeing if it's valid, all that sort of stuff. I don't have any of the indicators of validity here. And let me make this a little bit bigger. So I don't have any of those validity indicators. I have them designed. So the idea is that there'll be just like spell check, there'll be a red squiggle underneath the call sign if it's invalid. There will be, when a validation is occurring, the underline will basically pulse back and forth to show that it's working. And there's a series of icons that I have picked out that go on the left here for if someone needs to be acknowledged, if they have a valid call sign, if the call sign is for a group and not for an individual, or if it's an invalid call sign, all that will be able to be displayed with some status icons on the left with title attributes and so on. That's kind of where we're going. Now, this is a working example, right? It actually writes stuff to the database. The events, and I have to fill out the rest of these. Like, for example, why does this show up twice? That shouldn't happen. It has to do with casing, I believe. So we'll see why that happens shortly. And we'll make all these work. The events are pretty robust. There's tests for them. What I'm going to try to do with these live streams is pick a topic, or rather a segment of code, a feature, something. Do like Pomodoros, so every 30 minutes ish, 30 to 45 minutes, a stretch of let's try to solve a problem, start with a clean Git history, make some changes, get messy, ultimately hopefully end up with a Git commit at the end with a delivered little bit of functionality, incremental. So little steady improvements over time, and eventually we'll be able to get to the entire thing. Just to give you a quick peek of what goes into this, I'm not sure if this will be legible. I can make this a little bit bigger, or a lot of it bigger. When you're done, anytime now. Thank you. So there is we'll start with the handler. So when you view a session, when a net's occurring. This is the handler that ultimately gets called, and it runs the single net session from the template. The template is here, net temple, and it is right here. Shows everything. Single net session shows the information for a single net session. Very fancy. At the top of that, there is a check-in form, which has that's that bar on the top, and it submits to, on the left here, this handler called check-in, which will go ahead, parse it, determine, do validations. So it collects the user input from the view. That's why I have this struct on the view, because it's input in my mind from the view. And these are errors to go, and these also have to get passed back to the view to render it. I will go ahead and validate it and basically get the errors into where they're supposed to be. If there are any errors, we'll use the CSRF service to go ahead and get a new CSRF token, and then we can generate this template. If there are no errors, then we're going to go ahead and conduct a check-in with this the net service, check-in, and we give it the check-in information. And then we take our net and we replay. We use the net service to replay all of the events. And now with all those events, we can basically re-render the form, pass it off to HTMX to inject onto the page, and the table also to have it render on the page. And then the net service, we'll put that in the center here instead. We'll close this. On the right here, this is the thing that actually still to be cleaned up a little bit, but it basically does the check-in. We create a new ID for that check-in, which is going to be used to associate all further events with that check-in. We'll come back to this defer in just a moment. And it ultimately just creates an event that a check-in was heard with all the information that's of the model. So the model net check-in comes through, and we shove it all into an event, and ultimately create the event, and we return whether or not there was an error doing that. Now we get to the defer. So what we want to have happen is we create the event that we heard a check-in. Then we create an event that the check-in was verified. That just means that verification occurred. Since we want that ordering, we want to go ahead and probably need to do something else also, but this is how I chose to do it. When it returns, it will attempt to validate it. And that if it has any errors, it passes those errors along and ultimately creates an event that says that the check-in has been verified. If there's any issues, cool. If there haven't been any issues, we'll go ahead and create this event, which the replay will be able to do. And in short order, one of the things we're going to get to is we're going to use server sent events so that when the validation occurs, we can actually trigger that saying, hey, there's been a new event, redraw that table, and it will correct the table and the rows so that we can update the status of things as they go and be very, very responsive. So with that, that brings us kind of full circle. And let me pull up. Let's go back to Firefox. Thank you. And that brings us, that's kind of the whole flow here. We can enter here, change the traffic, and we'll be able to redraw. And it happens very, very quick. So it's nice and responsive. And the first thing we need to do is obviously make these show the correct things, and then we will start working on the annotations for these call signs. The deduplicating this, make sure that isn't a bug in the event system. And we also need to, so deduplicate this and start adding those annotations. And lastly, make it do some server sent events. That would be super cool. And then we'll probably be done with this for now. Then we'll go on to finish out the rest of the page, and then we'll be able to go to editing, acknowledging, all that sort of fun stuff. So that's the high level overview and a little bit of starting to get the next level down. But hoping that the audio works this time. Please be working. That would be much better, because this setup that I'm using with StreamYard seems to not make my entire system come to a crawl. Important. That's important. And it's late, so I'm going to stop there. But hopefully the audio works, and tomorrow I'll be able to do some Pomodoros together. Let's see. Can I do this thing? Does this work? Ta-da! Like and subscribe. And we can use banners to display calls to action, which is pretty nice. It's nicely animated. And I can even show your comments. So if we get to the point where we're making comments and I get comments, that'd be cool to show as well. So this tool looks pretty basic, but it works, hopefully. And until next time.